Tonight, the Prime Minister pledges to go forward, but is he standing on the edge of a political precipice? Labour's leader in Scotland, Sarwar, becomes the first high-profile party figure to call on the PM to go, voicing his anger about his handling of the Mandelson scandal.
The distraction needs to end, and the leadership in Downing Street has to change.
Well, the Prime Minister has been addressing his Labour MPs for over an hour now here at Westminster as he attempts to quell the crisis over his leadership. I'll have the very latest from here in the House of Commons.
But there's a boost for the Prime Minister as his cabinet, including a front-runner to replace him, rallies around with expressions of support.
Let's give Keir, just give Keir that chance. Let him set out how he's going to lead us forward.
Earlier, though, another blow for the Prime Minister as his Director of Communications, Tim Allen, became the second of his senior advisers to quit. But can any spin doctor really heal the malaise facing this government? And as leadership speculation hits boiling point, we'll look at what some of the rumoured contenders were up to over the weekend. All and more with Tandesi and Baroness Nicky Morgan. They'll be with us for the next hour. It is Monday. I'm Matt Barbet, live from Westminster. This is the Politics Hub. Good evening. Survival is hardly the most ambitious of targets for a Prime Minister, but right now Sir Keir Starmer looks to have achieved that pretty modest goal, despite another tumultuous day for his leadership. Here's the glass-half-full version. His cabinet is united in sticking by him, insisting that he is the right man for the top job. No rival candidate has come forward, despite widespread disquiet about his handling of the Lord Mandelson scandal. Here's the glass-half-empty version. The most high-profile Labour member yet called for him to go today, with Scottish leader Sarwar saying a change in leadership is needed in Downing Street. And he lost his second top aide in just 24 hours, with Communications Chief Tim Allen standing down. That's hot on the heels of his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, who resigned over the weekend. So the Prime Minister's future is on a knife edge, and this evening could shift it one way or another after he addressed Labour MPs in Parliament. We'll have the latest on that in a moment. Tan was there as well. But first, here's our political editor, Beth Rigby, and a warning that Beth's piece does contain some flash photography.
The distraction needs to end, and the leadership in Downing Street has to change.
Take that in. Labour's Scottish leader calling time on Keir Starmer. Sarwar, the first senior figure to break cover, plunging the Prime Minister into the greatest moment of jeopardy yet.
The situation in Downing Street is not good enough. There have been too many mistakes. They promised they were going to be different, but too much has happened. I need to decide what I'm willing to accept and what I'm willing to tolerate. Thank you.
Starmer in number 10, now intolerable for Sarwar. This a body blow for a Prime Minister already reeling from the departure of his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, on Sunday, and his Head of Communications, Tim Allen, shortly before Sarwar broke ranks. With number 10 in freefall, this moment could have marked the end for Starmer. But he was thrown a lifeline by a cabinet in no mood now for a coup. An hour after Sarwar called for Starmer to resign, the entire cabinet had endorsed him to stay in a flurry of tweets signalling their support. Would-be leadership contenders also rowing in behind Starmer. Angela Rayner tweeting, "I urge all my colleagues to come together, remember our values and put them into practice as a team. The PM has my full support." Wes Streeting also reluctant to call time on Starmer. Does Keir Starmer need to resign?
No, let's give Keir, just give Keir that chance. Let him set out how he's going to lead us forward.
The Health Secretary also trying to give himself a chance at any future tilt at the Labour leadership, deciding to publish his last 6 months of correspondence with Peter Mandelson and telling me he has nothing to hide. I've got these messages here. And I've only just, to be honest, Wes, I'm literally just reading them shortly before you came in. But there is a lot of genuine intimacy here and friendship. You know, Wes to you, to Peter, great pitch, lovely photos in the time Peter sends you a kiss. There's well done on the BBC. This is Peter Mandelson to you in June 25. I'm literally reading them as I go along. Well done on the BBC, very good kiss. Are you planning to visit the US this year? You hope so, ! Kiss. Are you embarrassed by that? I mean, that's quite an intimate friendship, isn't it?
Like, do I resile from friendship with Peter Mandelson? Yes, absolutely, given his behaviour and what he's done. Do I resile from those messages? No.
How embarrassed are you by these WhatsApps between you and him?
I'm embarrassed to have known Peter Mandelson.
There are plenty more in the party not just embarrassed, but angry that Mandelson was let back in.
What this has been, Beth, is unfortunately a centuries-long story that the voices of women and girls were, ignored by a few rich and powerful men who felt they could act with impunity.
It feels like Number 10 is in freefall. Can the Prime Minister survive?
Yes.
You really believe that?
I believe he can and he should. But I do believe that we need to steady the ship, but we also need to change course, because the public wants to see change in the country. They want a government and a party that they can trust, that they believe we need to clean up politics, that they believe that violence against women and girls is unacceptable. And I believe the Prime Minister should be given the space to make sure that it's not just his words, but the action.
I cannot overstate to you how pivotal today has been. Had some in the Cabinet decided not to back Starmer, well, he would have faced a leadership challenge or perhaps been forced to resign. That didn't happen, but he is badly, perhaps fatally wounded from all of this. But with no one in the Cabinet going in for the kill at the moment, well, that means that Starmer can at least try to battle on.
Prime Minister, your message to the country tonight?
His cabinet and party now in control, and Starmer's work cut out to persuade them to let him stay. A Prime Minister grateful for the reprieve, but under no illusions it may not last. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
Standing by this evening is our chief political correspondent, John Craig, who's had his ear to the door of the PLP meeting. Our Scotland correspondent, Conor Gillis, is in Glasgow and asked questions of Anna Sarwar earlier. But first, let's get the latest from our political editor, Beth Rigby, who's here with me in the studio. But Beth, when you were on the South Coast with Keir Starmer last week, he came out fighting. But really, it's gone from bad to worse since then, especially the past 24 hours. Anna Sarwar putting the boot in two of his senior aides, going as well.
Oh, it has been a roller coaster this past 48 hours. And when I speak to people in Number 10, I mean, they are shell-shocked at what has unfolded. You had Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, resigning yesterday. Cabinet Minister said to me after that resignation, the gravity of the situation that Starmer was in meant that there was no option but for McSweeney to go, that it was, to quote them, inevitable. This morning, you then had Tim Allen, his Director of Communications, resign. And at this point, I was actually in a school with Liz Kendall, and I thought, are we going to get to the end of the day and Keir Starmer is facing a leadership challenge and under huge pressure to resign? It felt that febrile and that precarious. Then Sarwar coming out, going over the top, to call for Starmer to resign. That was a huge moment because it was the first senior Labour figure to say he's got to go. And of course, Anna Sarwar is facing very, very difficult elections in Holyrood, in the Scottish Parliament elections, and he is trying to distance from Starmer. But at that point, we hadn't really heard from any cabinet ministers. Sure, I'd spoken to Liz Kendall that morning, and she had publicly backed Starmer. But we didn't know what the Cabinet were going to do. And at that point, when Anna Sarwar goes, if other people go, he's a goner. Yeah? It doesn't mean he doesn't fight a leadership challenge, but that is how, on a string, on the edge it felt. And then what happened, fascinating, what happened when Anna Sarwar made his speech and was giving that press conference is the tweets started coming from the cabinet, and I was on air, and by the time I was speaking, there was half a dozen tweets.
Yeah.
And then the full cabinet within an hour had back Starmer. Wes Streeting came on to our podcast. He's a leadership contender potentially. He said he didn't think the PM should resign. Then Angela Rayner, another potential challenger, said he shouldn't resign. And at that moment, the Prime Minister basically had a reprieve. But I just cannot overstate to you, that is how precarious. 11 o'clock, 2 p.m. this afternoon, I had no idea whether we would be sitting here tonight in a leadership challenge to the Prime Minister, with a Prime Minister potentially having to resign and everything that flows from that. So it really has been a very, very stressful 48 hours. So if I'm feeling a bit stressed by it, I can't imagine what the Prime Minister and actually his team in Number 10 are feeling. It has been absolutely fraught. I think that's fair to say, isn't it, Dan? Absolutely fraught.
I'm not going to hide the fact that it has been a shambles. How could we have got in this invidious position of being in any way linked to the Epstein scandal, which is the abuse of children, of women, of girls, and the actions of some sordid, very rich individuals, the likes of Jeffrey Epstein, the likes of Ghislaine Maxwell and others. And that is really so disheartening for many of us as Labour MPs. Never in our wildest dreams would we have imagined that we could in any way be connected with that. But I think, that's one thing that many of us are really, really concerned about. But on top of that, many of us are also wanting the Prime Minister to pull the party together. He stood on a platform of unity, of integrity.
Yeah.
And we can't be accused by others of having some sort of mates, jobs for the mates or jobs for the boys type scenario. It's got to be based on merit, and that is crucial. And in terms of unity, I think the pulling of the parties is incredibly important, because we've got different people going in different directions. And, I've just come from the Parliamentary Labour Party today, and that was, my question to the Prime Minister as well, that we've got, what's he going to do to make those structural changes, those cultural changes that really is going to make us proud, Labour MPs, and proud of this government.
Tam, we'll ask you more about that Parliamentary Labour Party meeting in a second. Glad you hot-footed it here to speak to us. Nikki, quick word from you on all of this, because the word psychodrama has been bandied around recently. This seems to have hit a whole new level.
It really does. I mean, I think just hearing Beth talking about the last 48 hours, and then actually hearing in Tan's voice. And look, I mean, I've been there, I've seen leadership contests up close and all the rest of it. It's incredibly frustrating for MPs and for the party supporters. And I can hear in your voice the sort of the frustration, but also the tension. But more broadly, I'm sure we'll explore this. It's just not good for politics generally. Anybody who cares about democracy, the way Westminster's working, all the things that government departments should be doing, this is massively distracting.
We certainly will explore it through the course of the next hour. Let's go to Central Lobby, where our chief political correspondent, John Craig, has been gauging the mood after Keir Starmer's address to the PLP this evening. What are they telling you, John?
Well, the Prime Minister's mood was pretty furious. I mean, he had a face like thunder when he arrived. And I can tell you, the meeting's still going on. It's almost an hour and a quarter now since it started at 6 o'clock. He strode down the corridor, head down, didn't even acknowledge all of us in the corridor. Normally party leaders and prime ministers say a polite hello, and occasionally there's a bit of banter with journalists in the corridor. None of that. And he went straight in. It's fair to say he got a very good round of applause when he walked in. The room was absolutely packed. Labour MPs, grandees from the Blair years, and even further back, Neil Kinnock's in the room. David Blunkett, John Reid from the Blair years, Tony Blair's former gatekeeper, Angie Hunter, Gordon Brown's gatekeeper, Sue Nye, both arrived together. Lots of Labour peers in the room as well. Clearly, Labour MPs, whether they were ordered by the whips to turn up, I don't know, but certainly they all did turn up, most of them. Anyway, some of those you might call the usual suspects were not there. The real critics of the Prime Minister. One MP, I think we can probably fairly call him a maverick, Clive Lewis, a critic of the PM, said afterwards, a lot of people have been persuaded to turn up to Little Bighorn. Well, I think I'm right in saying, wasn't that Custer's last stand? Well, it looks as though this is not yet the Prime Minister's last stand, because he has bought some time. There's a lot of fury amongst MPs, and indeed, clearly the Prime Minister shares that fury with Anas Sarwar for what he's done today. Some are likening what Sarwar's done to Andy Burnham before the Labour conference, when he said that Labour MPs were urging him to stand for the leadership. But he did get a good show of support from his cabinet. In the room are the two people talked about as the likely leadership candidates. Angela Rayner arrived after the Prime Minister, pink trouser suit, looking quite cheerful, smiling, saying hello. And Wes Streeting's also in the room as well. Also in the room, John Healey, for example, talked about by some people as perhaps a caretaker leader at some point. Full turnout from the cabinet, and the PM clearly is taking a lot of questions, because here we are, 7:15. That meeting's still going on. Normally the PLP lasts anything from half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. This is a long meeting. The Prime Minister is obviously fighting for his life in there, appealing for unity, obviously begging for more time to carry on. And so far, the messages we've heard from cabinet members, and indeed people like Lucy Powell, the deputy leader, and indeed Angela Rayner, she publicly backed Sir Keir today, even though it's claimed that she's preparing to mount a leadership challenge. So it looks as though he lives to fight another day. What he doesn't want, obviously, is any more senior figures like Anas Sarwar turning against him. So far, the cabinet are behind him. He'll be pretty relieved about that, because previous leadership crises for various prime ministers over the years, particularly I'm thinking of Boris Johnson. I remember there was a dramatic night when first Sajid Javid quit, then Rishi Sunak quit, and of course the famous night when Margaret Thatcher was toppled. Various cabinet ministers went into a room here in Parliament and told her the game was up. That has not happened to Sir Keir. He lives to fight another day. He's still upstairs in Committee Room 14 fighting. The meeting is still going on.
A long meeting at the start of a long week, John. It's only Monday evening. Thank you very much indeed for the time being. Our Scotland correspondent Conor Gillis was at Anas Sarwar's speech and joins us now from Glasgow. And you got a couple of questions in as well, didn't you, Conor? Why do you think he did what he did today? What did he explain himself?
Yeah, good evening, Matt. I think the big question tonight is whether this day of drama here in Scotland and at Westminster has backfired or is backfiring on Anas Sarwar. Is he tonight looking more isolated than he potentially thought he would be when the call came in at 11:40 this morning from a senior advisor to Anas Sarwar, summoning us here to Glasgow for an impromptu emergency press conference where it was clear that Anas Sarwar and Scottish Labour were thinking enough was enough. Let's remember, Anas Sarwar and his party north of the border here had been on course to potentially oust the SNP from power, to stop them entering a third decade in power at Holyrood. Well, there has been a dramatic change in fortunes for them ever since Keir Starmer began his premiership just over 18 months ago at Downing Street. And as Beth was saying, we cannot underplay the significance of this intervention from Anas Sarwar today. You have got key allies, friends, knifing each other in the back. They have been in lockstep for years. Photo opportunity after photo opportunity, handshakes, arm around one another. That relationship has been front and centre, and they have not deviated from the script for so many years until today. But that friendship ended at lunchtime today In a 20-minute phone conversation, we understand the pair had, and clearly there was disagreement about the direction of travel. And I think a recognition from Anas Sarwar that if he didn't make this intervention today, then essentially the game was already almost over in terms of his plight, in terms of his plot to get into power here in Scotland. But would it be so much worse if he didn't distance himself from the embattled Prime Minister? And he was at pains during that speech to say this was not easy, this wasn't without pain. He talked about the genuine friendship and loyalty, but Anas Sarwar was clear. He said his loyalty was with Scotland. He also talked about failures under Sir Keir Starmer's premiership. We haven't heard that word, failure, being used when it comes to the U-turns and various other chaotic moments of Sir Keir Starmer's time in Downing Street. I also asked a couple of questions to Anas Sarwar here this afternoon. Let's have a listen. One of your own Scottish Labour MPs is reacting to what you're saying here, calling it idiotic, immature, incoherent and self-defeating. It's playing right into your opponent's hands, according to that senior figure. Have you done this to blame the Prime Minister if you fail to become First Minister in May? And second of all, if you don't mind, last year you called Peter Mandelson an old friend when it was public knowledge that he had links with Jeffrey Epstein. How do we take you seriously on cleaning up politics when one of your own Scottish Labour MSPs is best friends with a convicted paedophile?
Let me first say that the approach of briefings I have always called out. And that's why I'm not taking the approach of briefing. I'm not taking the approach of talking to journalists in private. I'm being upfront and honest about my view and my first priority and my first loyalty being to Scotland. And that's why I'm doing what I believe is best for Scotland. And let me also be clear that Peter Mandelson is not someone or something I want to be associated with. I met him in his capacity as the ambassador ambassador to the US because that was the right thing to do in Scotland's interest. But should he have been appointed the ambassador? No. Should he be a member of the Labour Party? No. Should he have a seat in the House of Lords? He shouldn't. And it's right now that he is investigated by the police.
Clearly tonight there is division between Scotland and the Westminster Labour groups. There is no coming back from this in terms of that relationship with Sir Keir Starmer and Anas Sarwar. One final note, one senior Scottish Labour figure texted me earlier on saying this is playing right into our opponent's hands. The SNP clearly loving every single second of this. Tonight, John Swinney saying Sarwar is an opportunist and that he is prepared to use every opportunity for his own self-preservation. This election, in just a few months' time, has ramped up several notches today, Matt.
Certainly has, Conor. Thank you very much indeed. Let's bring back in our duo for this evening, Labour MP and Chair of the Defence Committee, Tan Desi, and former Conservative Education Secretary, Baroness Nicky Morgan. And Beth is, of course, still here as well. Do you think he's going to ride this out, Tan?
Well, there are differing opinions, but as far as I am concerned, that I don't think that this is the time to have that chaos and instability of a leadership contest. And it was good to see that Keir, as a Prime Minister, came out and he was very emotive. He apologised to the Parliamentary Labour Party and I think to the country as well that this is not where he wanted to be, that he had been lied to. And the likes of me just want to see cultural and structural changes so that the Parliamentary Labour Party is listened to, that our views are important, that we want to make sure that this Labour government succeeds. And I think that's the key because we need to deliver for our country. We don't want to get involved in factional infighting. It's that time to actually deliver for us, including my Slough constituents.
A lot of people would argue that he's the cause of that factional infighting. Do you really think he's the man to bring about the change you want to see?
Well, he has said that he is going to institute those changes, whether it's in the Number 10 operation, whether it's in the in that how he's
had a lot of time to do that already, hasn't he?
That's what he has promised. So I will take him at his word. What I want to see is that we don't get into a scenario where we descend into just all-out warfare or factional infighting. Yeah. We need to deliver for the country because otherwise people will rightly say, including in Slough. Why have we elected a Labour government? What is the Prime Minister doing? What is the government doing? So that is what I want to do. I want to make sure that we're talking here, not about this infight. I want to talk about those extra NHS appointments. I want to talk about the free breakfast clubs that people in Slough are now benefiting from. I want to talk about defence and security issues. And when we've been here before, we're talking about this existential crisis for our European continent, rather than all of this drama around Mandelson. And, look, that, by the way, pains all of us.
Yeah.
As a parent of 2 young children, as somebody with young nieces, it makes my blood boil. We could be linked to somebody like Mandelson, and where the systems and processes failed us.
Nikki, if you didn't know it was Tan speaking there, some of the things he was describing, you think he was talking about the Conservatives, wouldn't you? At a certain point in time?
Well, the tone of what Tan said and the kind of I want to go back.
The
well, I want to,
factionalism,
but also the desperation to go back. I want to go back to what the party's doing for the country, and not talk about this. Yeah, it has a horrible ring of familiarity, and I think that people thought that come the 2024 general election, that hopefully had all, the country had moved on from all of that. And I think what's really interesting is, what Tan is saying, because I was reflecting, I was listening to all the coverage earlier on. This actually is not about factional infighting. As far as I can tell, you'll know more about the Labour Party factions than I will. The thing of this is about judgment of the person at the top, and whether the political judgment in appointing Peter Mandelson, given everything else that he's done in his past. This time Tuesday last week, a very senior Labour Party person in the House of Lords said to me, it's almost unbelievable, the Peter Mandelson thing, if it wasn't so utterly predictable. And you just kind of think, actually, how is it that the Prime Minister ultimately made that judgment? So, I mean, I'm afraid, Tan, I think I've been in a position... all the structural changes and everything else, so yes, there could be better people who are employed in number 10 and everything else, but the fact is it ultimately goes to judgment at the top. And we've seen it, I'm afraid, with some Conservative Prime Ministers, and now we've got it with this, where actually you've got to have somebody who's got, a good judge of character, good judgment overall.
Tan, can I just ask you, because I've lived through reporting this past couple of days, how have you felt? Did you think there was a moment that Starmer might have to go?
No, look, this is an existential crisis for the Prime Minister, for our party, for our government. And, this has been fraught. I had to go back after Thursday, went back to Slough for a whole bunch of meetings. I don't want to be standing there, when I'm visiting the dementia clinic, or when going to the local hospital, or local Labour Party members had to address on Friday night answering these sort of questions and apologising on behalf of us in Westminster.
Yeah.
Well, that's not something that I came into politics. I don't want to be associated with that. What I want to be talking about is, look, we promised this, we've delivered, right? We said we would do this, we put the national minimum wage up, we put more money into NHS, into our schools. But unfortunately, we just keep getting veered into different directions, and that is what needs to change. And I think that's the sentiment that I was trying to bring out in our meetings and indeed in other discussions.
I'm sorry, Tan, I'm going to have to veer you back to this. In fact, veer you up to Scotland, because you know Anas Sarwar.
Yeah.
Why did he do what he did today? Because, as Connor explained there, he did phone the Prime Minister to tell him what he was going to do. So he didn't knife him in the back, he knifed him in the front.
Well, look, Anas is a friend. I want to put that on record. As someone who has lived and worked in Scotland for 3 years, I'm not as close to the political scenario. He's obviously in the middle of an election, a very important election for Holyrood. And I have not spoken to him for several months. And indeed, last time I went there was, I think, in the middle of Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election.
Yeah.
When I went to his house, we looked at what was going on. And look, I know that he's coming overall from a good place, that he wants to succeed. But at this present moment in time, I don't agree with him. That I think the country doesn't need that instability, doesn't need that chaos.
Yeah.
We just need to get our ducks in a row. We need to make sure that we are focusing in on the platform, which was integrity and unity.
But Nikki, does it look disloyal of Anas Sarwar? And actually, he's inadvertently distancing Holyrood from Westminster with this, which, funnily enough, is exactly what the SNP would like.
Well, I'm afraid it does look disloyal, and people don't like divided parties. I think we can absolutely understand the politics of all of this, which is that Anas Sarwar has decided that he needs to be able to say and be seen to be able to be critical of the Prime Minister of Westminster. But unfortunately, parties do people like them to hang together, even in the difficulties. And there's no doubt, as we've heard already, the SNP are going to absolutely enjoy all of this.
Can I just ask one more thing?
Of course you can.
Tan, you look quite upset to me. You actually look upset tonight. And someone's messaged me that was in the meeting with the Prime Minister, and they said he was very honest and raw. Did he seem upset tonight? Can you sort of tell us how you're feeling and how he seemed?
Yeah, look, without divulging, exactly what was said in the meeting and who said what, he was very emotive. I think that passion came through. That he accepted his mistakes. The apology was very heartfelt, or at least that's what it felt to me. That didn't stop me from asking a critical question, because I want to see changes, and I want to see us moving forward so that we are seen in a good light. I want to go back to Slough, and I want people to say, well done. I love not just you, Tan, but I love the government. We're doing great. This is what we voted you in for. But there's uneasiness there, and the Prime Minister has got to get rid of that uneasiness for himself and the rest of us. And that's why these are difficult times for us.
But, one of his closest aides in Morgan McSweeney has gone. Tim Allen, who's, been in the trenches with New Labour previously, is now on a golf course somewhere, judging by his out of office. People are saying this looks like they're leaving a sinking ship.
Well, I don't know whether we can characterise it as such, because, if the Prime Minister is saying that he's going to institute changes, and maybe those are the start of those 2 changes. And what we've said is that the number 10 operation is important, but so is the Parliamentary Labour Party. Some of us have been saying again and again...
So that's just been overlooked, do you think, in the past year and a half?
Some of the wounds have been self-inflicted in the last year, and some of us, in the confines of a private room, especially with the whips, we've been saying, and when we saw the clear-out of the whip's office, for example, that wasn't something that I liked, because those individuals, it was apparently some accusation from some advisors within Number 10 saying, these people are becoming some sort of trade union wing of the Labour Party, of the Parliamentary Labour Party. No, they are literally taking the message that some of us have been feeling, whether it's in terms of PIP, whether it's in terms of winter fuel payments and so on. So we need to make sure that the Parliamentary Labour Party, the mandate that we have, that the views that we have, that they are respected.
Tan, thank you very much indeed for the time being. Let's get more now with the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, Lucy Powell, who's in Central Lobby. Or, Lucy, am I talking to the next leader of the Labour Party?
You're talking to the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, and I think what we saw tonight very, very clearly and resoundingly was how much support there is for Keir Starmer as our leader in the PLP. I've never known a meeting quite like that one that there was this evening. I think there were maybe 3, 4 or more standing ovations for Keir, including when he entered the room. Because, look, I think we all recognise it's been a difficult week, difficult few days, most importantly for the victims of Epstein and that the web of power and corruption and of abuse that he weaved across the world, actually, and how that sort of impacted on this Labour Party and people feeling that somehow we're all as bad as Epstein or Peter Mandelson. And it's been a difficult week, but MPs from across the Labour Party, in their dozens and dozens, wanted to come along this evening to show that the Prime Minister has their full support, and he spoke very passionately from the heart, and I think that was very reassuring.
I'm interested in your support for him, and he hasn't really supported you. He shuffled you out of the Cabinet, and he didn't want you to be Deputy Leader of the Labour Party either. So why has he got your support in being Prime Minister still?
Well, look, you're right to say I'm not a formal member of the government. I'm not on the payroll. I don't have my job through any patronage of the Prime Minister. I'm directly elected by the PLP and party members. I have my own mandate. And the Prime Minister has my support because I happen to think that's the right thing for the country, and that's the right thing for our party too, because we've got a country to run and we've got things that we need to change, that we were elected to change. And we can only do that as one team working together to get that kind of change in. Yes, of course, we have made mistakes and we need to do better. And Keir and I have spoken a number of times, not just in recent days, but since I was elected, about some of the ways that we need to improve how we're working, the cultural aspects, and making sure that we're more inclusive and collaborative, and that we hear more voices, but also in telling a much stronger story about whose side we're on in this Labour government. And he's been very receptive to working with me on those issues. And I also happen to think that him continuing to be the Prime Minister of this country with the full support of the PLP is absolutely the right thing. So I'm not saying it because anybody's asking me to say it, because I'm not bound by that. I'm saying it because I think it's the right thing to do.
So it sounds a bit like having your cake and eating it here, because on the one hand you wanted to stay as Prime Minister, the government to continue, but you also want him to compromise the agenda that he won an election on for the sake of the wider parliamentary Labour Party. You want both things at the same time?
Well, not at all, no. I think that, and he spoke about this evening very powerfully and clearly, that he recognises that the way in which we operate and the Labour Party's operated in the government does need to be more inclusive, it does need to be more plural, it does need to bring in all the sort of talents of the Labour Party into that as well. We have a manifesto.
Does it need to be more left-wing? Is that what you're saying? Does Labour need to move more to the left? No.
It's not what I'm saying at all. We've got a manifesto that we were elected on, some of which we've delivered, some of which is now being enacted and coming on stream. That's going to make a real difference to people's lives, whether that's more decent pay at work and rights at work, whether that's more security as a renter, whether that's bringing down mortgage rates, all of those things that we are doing that are coming on stream now. We've got more things in our manifesto that we were elected to do, and we need to get on with doing those. But we need to tell that much stronger Labour story about whose side we're on and how the change that we are delivering is really in the interests of ordinary people, and that we are taking on those vested interests. And I think we can all accept, and Keir would accept this just as much as me, that we haven't told a strong enough story about that, and we haven't, in the way that we've operated at times, we haven't always made the right decisions, which is why we have made some mistakes. So we do, it's absolutely fine to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. I think the key is, do you learn from those mistakes, and what changes do you make to make sure that they don't happen again? And I think what we heard from Keir this evening was, him owning those mistakes and him being really, really clear about how he wants to address them and make sure they don't happen again.
Lucy Powell, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on the Politics Hub. As we heard a bit earlier, Health Secretary Wes Streeting has also thrown his weight behind Keir Starmer. He was speaking to Beth, who's just vacated the spot, for her Electoral Dysfunction podcast, where he was asked about his relationship with Peter Mandelson.
I've got these messages here, and I've only just, to be honest, Wes, I'm literally just reading them shortly before you came in, but there is a lot of genuine intimacy here and friendship. Wes to you, to Peter, great pitch, lovely photos in the time Peter sends you a kiss. There's well done on the BBC. This is Peter Mandelson to you in June 25. I'm literally reading them as I go along. Well done on the BBC, very good kiss. Are you planning to visit the US this year? You hope so, ! Kiss. Are you embarrassed by that? I mean, that's quite an intimate friendship, isn't it?
No, look, an intimate friendship. With Peter Mandelson, look, I'm very happy to...
But there are dozens and dozens of messages here.
And people will be able to read them. What I felt I saw over the weekend was this implication that somehow I had something to hide and that there were going to be very embarrassing or damaging messages coming out. Now, do I resile from friendship with Peter Mandelson? Yes, absolutely, given his behaviour and what he's done. Do I resile from those messages? No.
How embarrassed are you by these WhatsApps between you and him?
I'm embarrassed to have known Peter Mandelson. I hope that, more than anything else actually in those messages, I hope I haven't caused either embarrassment or discomfort for my cabinet colleagues.
If you scan the QR code that's just on the screen right now beneath the trio, you can listen to that extra episode of the Electoral Dysfunction podcast with the Health Secretary. It's out now. Well, the turmoil in number 10 and in the machine there continued today after another of Keir Starmer's top aides quit. The PM's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, stepped down from his role after around only 5 months in the post. He follows in the footsteps of Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, who, as I'm sure you know, announced his resignation yesterday. Mr Allen said he was leaving to allow a new number 10 to be built, new number 10 team. And he made it very clear he's officially left Downing Street, changing his WhatsApp profile photo to an image of a club and a ball with the words "gone golfing." I wonder what his handicap is. Let's bring Tan and Nikki back in right now. Let's just return to what Lucy Powell was saying. She's talking of a reset. She's talking of what you said, of having the Parliamentary Labour Party more involved. But by the same time, this is the same, in a lot of instances, the same bunch of people who have scuppered quite a bit of the government's agenda, especially on things like welfare reform. So how's that going to work?
Well, it's not a case of scuppering. Look, we are on team level. We want the UK government to succeed. We love our country. We want to make sure that the government is not
but only if they compromise on
unintentionally
policy,
that
then.
they are not making mistakes. So the whole point
mistakes are subjective, though, it seems, in this situation.
Ultimately, look, we, as the Parliamentary Labour Party, we have the mandate. We are the best foot soldiers for any Prime Minister. We're the ones, Nikki will know, when you're an MP, you're constantly going back to the constituency, you're getting thousands of emails. So on behalf of my Slough constituents, I have to say, look, I'm not in favour of this particular policy. I don't want to make my Slough constituents poorer, and therefore I won't be voting for this. I think that there needs to be a change. And what we're saying is, if there are enough of us taking that message back, it's not for advisors, it's not for the number 10 team to suddenly be saying, yeah, don't worry, yeah, get rid of the whips, whoever is not giving a particular stance. It's not about, yes, sir, 3 bags full. It's about doing what is right for the country. Okay. And if there are individuals who haven't got their own merit, who are simply just saying yes, 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 and we can't have some sort of clique in charge or a groupthink scenario. Right. We passionately want the government and the Prime Minister to succeed. So it's not about scuppering any of his plans. In fact, I think in hindsight, we have helped the party, we have helped the country to make sure that the right decisions are duly taken. And I think that has been borne out by some of what we've done, whether it's in terms of PIP or the welfare proposed cuts, that we want to ensure that we don't make a mistake, which then ultimately we then have to do a U-turn on later on down the line.
We're not going to talk about U-turns. We'll be here all evening, Tan, if we do that. The thing is, Nikki, surely they would have learnt a lesson from the Conservatives in this, because you keep the party together until you don't again.
Well, yes, you would have thought so. Look, I mean, the Conservative Party demonstrated, Conservative MPs have got very good at choosing a leader, deciding that they weren't so keen or something went wrong, and therefore changing leaders. I mean, I will also say to Tan and colleagues, it's much harder to change leader. There's a lot of speculation. It takes time, and it really is also kind of, it takes a lot out of you as a constituency
A much more
MP.
process with Labour, by the way.
A much a different process and everything else. So I think anyone who thinks this is going to be easy, unless, of course, the Prime Minister himself chooses to stand down, in which case you trigger a leadership contest and everything else. But I mean, I think, again, it's worth going back to, I know you don't want to talk about all the U-turns, but, the reason I think that Keir Starmer is in a weakened position already going into this crisis with Peter Mandelson is because there have been a number of changes of policy, and because there was already a feeling of frustration, I think, amongst Labour MPs and Labour supporters and everything I've picked up in Westminster with how number 10 was performing. And so actually, if you have been fairly steady-footed going into something like this, then I think actually most of your MPs and UTAN would give the Prime Minister and his Chief Staff the benefit of the doubt. But the trouble is, you couldn't do that because of everything that happened before.
Hold that thought, Tan. Hold that thought, because we'll come back to you. We're going to cross back to the central lobby where John is still for us. John Craig, our Chief Political Correspondent. Any more on the mood there, John? Is the meeting still going on?
No, it's finished now, as you know, because you've interviewed Lucy Powell after it finished. Yes, we've had a bit of intelligence about what the Prime Minister had to say. The other interesting fact, I think, is he took 44 questions. 44. No wonder the meeting went on so long. Anyway, I can tell you that, according to number 10 sources, he started by saying that he took full responsibility for the Mandelson appointment. That decision was wrong, he said. He paid tribute to Morgan McSweeney, 25 years of service to the Labour Party. He paid tribute to the work he did for the party. We wouldn't be here without him today. That's something he said before. He said it in Prime Minister's questions last week. He's talking about change and far beyond who sits where in number 10. Now, a bit of an admission here. He said relations with the Parliamentary Labour Party have not been open or inclusive enough. Turning in on ourselves is turning in on the country. He said he'd fought to change the Crown Prosecution Service when he was DPP. He fought to change the Labour Party. And he said he wasn't prepared to walk away from his mandate or the country. And he talked passionately, that's something that Lucy Powell said, I think, about having the most working class cabinet behind him. He finished by talking about the fight against reform and politics against grievance. As long as I have breath in my body, I'll be in this fight. And he did also refer to Anas Sarwar's brutal attack today. He said he talked about recognising concerns about things that have not gone right. Anas has shared his thoughts today. Well, I think he's done more than shared his thoughts. I mean, he's launched an absolute missile at the Prime Minister's leadership, which has rocked the Labour Party. It's forced cabinet ministers to declare their loyalty to the Prime Minister. And clearly, I guess the government will be pleased that they will probably feel that this meeting went well. As far as we know, there were no really hostile questions, although we might learn about some in the next few minutes, I suppose. And I can tell you that as well as all the Labour grandees, all the cabinet, the two would-be candidates for the Labour leadership, if Sir Keir does go, Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner were in the room. Wes Streeting arrived a bit late. Angela Rayner arrived after the Prime Minister as well, resplendent in a pink trouser suit, looking cheerful, smiling, saying hello to people. The Prime Minister, I can tell you, arrived with a face like thunder, didn't speak to anyone in the corridor, and he slipped out of the meeting, avoided any questions, whilst cabinet ministers who were spilling out of the room were chatting to journalists in the corridor.
John, thank you very much indeed. No word on the Prime Minister's outfit, but I suspect it was probably a navy blue suit. The ongoing turmoil in number 10 is sure to feature heavily on our late-night programme. The Wrap, it's on at 10. Here to discuss all of today's big stories, or big story, and the best of tomorrow's papers will be Daily Mirror columnist Kevin Maguire and the former Conservative Special Advisor, Salma Shah. Still to come right now, though, on the Politics Hub, the PM remains in the top job, but who could be his successor? John named a couple there. We'll take a look at the runners and riders.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
You are not getting in this elevator, okay?
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Free, wherever you get your news. This is what they're up against. The wind is the really big problems. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? This is the exact spot in Nottingham where their 19-year-old son, Barnaby Webber, lost his life.
I just think it's so cruel and so harsh.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
Sky News gets the full story first. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. It's almost driverless, but not quite. Hans is a highly trained police dog. The force is incredible. It's really frightening, actually. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
Now, I think we can say that Keir Starmer has survived another day, but questions about what and who comes next, they're probably not going to go away. Is there a clear successor to the PM? No one has really stuck their neck out, but there are a number of names being discussed as in contention. We've already heard from a couple of them. We heard from Health Secretary Wes Streeting earlier, and among the other names in the offing is the former Deputy PM, Angela Rayner, of course, who popped up in a video at the weekend enjoying getting her hair done.
You've got a nice natural flick in it as well, haven't you? So it looks nice with the layers. Yeah. Right, we'll get your colour mixed and then we'll freshen you up. Woohoo! Yes. How does that look for you? That is amazing.
That is a decent glow-up, I think the youngsters would say. Meanwhile, Armed Forces Minister Al Carnes is another name on the rise. He took to X yesterday, first of all posting this photo with a message, "Have a great morning, everyone, ... By 5 in the evening, sporting a Belstaff gilet. Carnes had, it's a fashion show tonight, isn't it? Carnes had popped down the pub to enjoy, with a customary X-post, a quiet beverage on a Sunday afternoon. Hashtag support your local. Let's go through the runners and riders then as things stand. With Andy Burnham blocked from returning to Parliament or even trying to run in that by-election. Angela Rayner is, of course, up there, considered to be on the soft left of the party. She's been vocal of late, but still has to settle her tax affairs. Wes Streeting has been widely tipped to throw his hat in the ring. Streeting hails from the right of the Labour Party, previously working for the Blairite think tank Progress. Also around there in the party is Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, a darling of the blue Labour crowd. Former leader Ed Miliband's name is also out there on the soft left, and he was, of course, rejected by the electorate in 2015. All three current cabinet members backed Keir Starmer today. And yes, that ex-Royal Marine Commando Al Carnes, who we just mentioned, has only been in Parliament since the last election in 2024, but is a name that has been circulating on the rumour mill. Let's bring in our duo for this evening, Tan and Nikki. And I tell you something about Al Carnes, Tan. He can do chin-ups like you would not believe. That man is fit and healthy and clearly raring to go.
Oh, look, definitely. I think he missed the defence questions because he was out there doing his reservist role in Norway. Well, this is all good banter, and it's good to be discussing this. But rather than any runners and riders, I think the key thing is for the Prime Minister in particular to be delivering. I think that is the key thing that most of us are discussing. Well, we're not really seeing... I mean, these individuals, by the way, none of them have messaged me, the likes of me, or as far as I can ascertain from other MPs. So...
But hang on a minute, but prior to this scandal, there'd been briefing. There'd been, people slightly moving away from the party line that suggested they had their own ambitions.
Well, that's why those suggested briefings and the way that things were apparently briefed from the number 10 team or from this team or that team, that was so counterproductive to what we need to deliver. I'm glad, by the way, that John mentioned that the Prime Minister said that he wants to be all-inclusive, because that was part of what I wanted to hear from him as well.
Yeah.
So I think that is why people want to concentrate on that, especially amongst the MPs, rather than think about some sort of leadership election, because as Nikki pointed out earlier, that just takes so much out of the party, and I don't think that's what the country wants either. They don't want this. Well, it's all good. Well done to Angie, by the way, with her hair. I've got to sort out my TikTok. I've got to talk with my team to get that sorted out. But then again, I think apart from my turban and the tie, I don't think I can get those hair and stuff. As I said to your makeup artist...
It's a great colour today, though, by the way.
I love you too, Matt. But as I was saying to your makeup artist, that don't worry about it. I think I'm past that sort of stage. Is to just do a bit of touching up, and I think, as my wife says, you are definitely past that stage.
But no, that's cruel.
Fair play to her.
A glow up at the weekend. It's fine.
Oh, good.
Nikki, let me bring you back in on this because leadership content. It's part and parcel of politics that people are always speculating who could come next. I mean, you might win a stonking majority and the next day someone's got their eye on the big prize. Of course they have. This is just part and parcel. I know people will think, it's the Westminster bubble obsessing about this kind of stuff, but it happens. We can't ignore it.
Well, it is Westminster's favourite game, which is sort of constructing fantasy cabinet, and this is sort of fantasy leadership. I'm watching very closely because Angela Rayner was my deputy when I was, not deputy, shadow when I was Education Secretary, and Wed Streeting was on the Treasury Select Committee when I chaired it. So I think they will both be very interesting people to watch. I mean, it's as I say, it's a favourite thing to do, a bit of speculation. And what's interesting, I'm old enough to remember, of course, leadership contest started when the telephone lines went in. Well, these days, digital, we don't need telephone lines, but everyone watching around Westminster to see which buildings have suddenly got very busy with lots of, parliamentary interns suddenly wanting to help.
You say about the phone lines going in, there had been an Angela Rayner for PM or for leader, I don't know what the name of the website was, registered, which I think her team have denied, and it was perhaps a work in progress that was never meant to go anywhere. So perhaps that's a bit of a dead end. Let's just come back to Al Khan's new guy on the block, really. What do you know of him? Impressive military career, I think a colonel in the Royal Marines, as I said there, keeps himself fit. I was speaking to someone in Welsh Labour today, and they mentioned his name too. Certainly seems to be people coalescing around him.
Look, I don't think there's any coalescing going on around anybody. That is not
they
something.
Are. They seem to be.
No, definitely. Look, I am in an inordinate amount of WhatsApp groups and Signal, streams going along, and that definitely has not registered with me. And I'd like to think that I am fairly well connected within the Parliamentary Labour Party, and indeed within the wider MPs, because in order to, as Nikki and I was discussing, you've chaired a committee, I've chaired a committee, there is a sophisticated electorate. To get their votes to become a chair of a committee, you need to have built up relationships. So I don't think that's anything that anybody's discussing. But no, he also cares passionately about our country. To be awarded with a military cross, I think that the key for Al and others, including John Healey and others, is to do the most important job at the moment. It's not about all this speculation. It's about defence, and it's their primary duty of the government. And I am sure that Al, John and others, Luke, Pollard, etc., and Louise, that they will be doing that, because otherwise they'll be taken to task by the likes of us on the Defence Committee.
15 seconds for a final thought from you, Nikki.
Well, firstly, I'm not sure that press-ups are going to be part of any leadership contest. And secondly, I think what the Al Khan's thing does show is that people in the Labour Party may be desperate for a really fresh start. So nobody in the Cabinet look for somebody who is totally sort of new to senior leadership in that way.
Honestly, who can do the most pull-ups? That decides it. That would be worth watching. We put that in the Politics Hub slot here on Sky News, I assure you. Tan, Nikki, great to have you with me this evening for a busy one. Thank you very much indeed. Great to have you as well. That's it from us for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow at 7. Tonight, UK Tonight is up next with Sarah Jane, of course.